Well, hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I'm back. Today I have an interesting video for you. I want to talk about Alone the Beast, Season 1, Episode 3. The name of this episode is Burnt Out. I've got my notes here, got a lot to talk about. First thing I want to say is this video will contain heavy spoilers. So if you haven't been able to watch the episode, I recommend that you turn this video off, go watch that, and come back and listen to my thoughts. Now, I also want to tell you that the History Channel or the network has pulled Alone the Beast Season 1 off of the air. The only episodes that are allowed to be seen in the United States are Episode 1 and Episode 2 that I've already done commentary on in previous videos. So this episode, Burnt Out, Episode 3, is the first one that was not allowed for the American public to see. Now, as a fellow survivalist, I noticed quite a few red flags. I'm not here to discount the History Channel. I'm not here to talk down on the participants or to create any kind of drama in any way. There's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about on the show and I'm going to share my thoughts on, and there's a few things that I'm going to keep my mouth shut on. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about the participants, where they're at, and what kind of kill they had. So first thing is they are in the Canadian Arctic again. It's a Musk Ox kill. And let's talk about the participants of this episode. The first one is Shane. He's a 41-year-old man from Indiana. And he says that a knife is your number one tool in survival. And out here, he doesn't have one. So he's an ex-Marine. So Shane, thank you for your service to this amazing country that we love so much. He has a never give up kind of mentality, probably because of his Marine Corps experience. And he's got history or experience working in a tannery. So very cool, very good to meet this guy. So he's going to be able to tan hides and things like that. Now, the second participant is a 41-year-old female named Anne from Illinois. She's never seen a Musk Ox before in real life. I haven't either. The third participant is a gentleman, 29 years old, Philip from Texas. And he said, what sets us apart as human beings from other animals is our ability to create tools. So very accurate statement by Philip. So let's move into the show a little bit, and first thing I'm going to talk about is there's an annotation that comes on the screen and it says Musk Ox are hooved animals that are related to sheep and goats, and they can weigh up to 800 pounds. Now the cast of the show, they decide that they want to get some stone edges so that they can get the guts out of the Musk Ox to cool the carcass. So that's cool, you know, that's their plan. Another annotation comes on the screen and it says prehistoric humans would make stone tools by knocking off stone flakes with a hammer stone. And this process is called percussion flaking. It's 56 degrees outside. So once again, like I mentioned in previous episodes, it's important to cool that carcass down. If they don't get that carcass cool quickly, bacteria is going to go rampant. It's going to get bad real quick. So going back to Anne, let's talk about her a little bit more. She says that she's a scientist / biologist by schooling. She understands the anatomy and processed many types of animals in her life. And she said that it's often common that people underestimate her skill set. So Shane's up to his elbows inside of this carcass. He's just trying to get this thing gutted, and Anne keeps giving him recommendations. She's standing over him, kind of telling him, well, you could do it this way, you could do it that way. And they've already had kind of a minor spat. And she's telling him something about how to do it or whatever, and he's like, I know, or whatever, I've already done that, or whatever. And she tells him, it's your way or the highway, huh? And he says, no, it's not. So moving forward, we're talking about Phil. He teaches a variety of survival skills. He really enjoys the primitive skill sets, and he's going to try for a hand drill fire. Okay, so go ahead and he breaks away from Shane and Anne, and his objective is to try to get some fire going. Hand drill. So he gets started. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, hand drills are one of the oldest, most widespread primitive fire making methods and are still used in many countries. Phil wants to honor his grandmother and her Cherokee heritage by getting a friction fire by hand drill. He wants to show respect, he wants to show honor, and I get it. I understand. So Shane's over there cutting the musk ox, and he accidentally cuts the intestine, and he spilled animal feces. Anna's not happy. She says that her and Shane are both very strong-willed individuals, and they're going to need to learn to find some common ground. They both have different ideas of how to butcher this animal. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says that feces contains E. coli bacteria, which can cause diarrhea and vomiting if consumed. Feces can also contain hepatitis, worms, and giardia. Now, Shane says that Anne is a germaphobe, and he's not. And he thinks that they're going to bump heads a lot in this 30-day challenge. She's still standing over him, telling him how to do it, and he's like, whatever. So he steps out, and he gives her the rock, and he's like, go for it. So I got to give props to Shane for that. I would have done the same thing. Somebody trying to tell me he's already the one in there knee deep in this carcass trying to do something, and he don't need her just standing over him trying to telling him how to do it. So he gives her the rock, tells her go for it, and like I said, I would have done the same thing. So now let's go back to Phil. We're 3 hours into him working on a hand drill. He's been working on it, and he says, I get these in Texas all the time within 15 to 30 seconds. And he's starting to realize that that this is they're in a different place. They're not in Texas, right? Things aren't as dry. Just like here in Arizona, I can crank out a bow drill, but I'm not gonna go think that I can do that everywhere in the world, because I understand that there's different levels of humidity and bow drill, friction fire. It's more about learning the technique, and things of that nature. So he does something very wise, in my opinion. He swallows his pride on the hand drill and decides to try a bow drill instead, which I thought was extremely smart. He shifted gears to another technique, which also shows the depth of his skill set, in my opinion. So now he's 4 hours into this fire progress. He's doing a bow drill now. He's got some spruce roots and alder. And spruce roots he's using for his cordage, and alder he's using for his set. And an annotation comes on the screen, and it says, a bow drill consists of a spindle, a bow, and cordage. Now there's also a hearth and a bearing block that's involved too. And it says prehistoric humans have made cordage by twisting together vines and grass. Now, I'll be honest with you, all of the primitive cordage that I've made that way using grass and stuff like that, it's not super strong. So if you can use something from the animal, that would have been, in my opinion, a better idea. They got a carcass sitting there. But I'm not judging. I'm just taking note of something that I saw and sharing it with you. Shane and Ann at this point seem to be getting along better. They have all the guts out of the animal, and Shane decides to go help Phil with the fire. Ann says okay. And Phil, I gotta give Phil credit. This dude is busting his tail, working hard, trying to get this fire. His work ethic is excellent. He's trying his butt off. Ann says okay. Phil's trying hard. He's having a hard time. Now, one of my personal thoughts, I'm noticing his hearth board. I thought it was too small. It was a stick. It looked like it was no bigger than an inch in diameter, and his spindle was like the full size of the width of the hearth. I don't think that that's a good idea, because from my experience, when you have a smaller diametered hearth, that generally translates into a harder piece of wood. It's a younger piece of wood. So to get a softer hearth, I've always found that larger pieces were more successful for me because they were softer. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's just something that I've learned from experience. So they're 6 hours into this fire attempt now. Shane tells him to relax. He says, take a deep breath. You know, he's kind of letting the pressure off of Phil a little bit. Phil and Ann continue to try the fire. And it looks like Ann's trying to do a strap drill. So it looks like she's either got the bearing block on her chest or in her mouth, because the shot was from the back of her. And you can see her hands going like this. And she's either got it on her chest or in her mouth. Can't quite tell. I'm not like a huge fan of that technique. Some people love it, but there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says Canada's Northwest Territories are home to 4,000 wolverines, 4,000 wolves, and 20,000 bears. So now they're 10 hours into this fire attempt. They're getting into the night. It's dark now, and Phil is still trying. So Phil is just going for it. 10 hours in now. It's 36 degrees outside Fahrenheit, and it's like I said, it's dark outside. So basically, we're moving into day 2. They had a cold night, no fire, no shelter, and they decide to put moss on top of the carcass of the musk ox to help keep it cool. They know that the temperatures are approximately in the 50s during the day. And they also know that the black hair from the musk ox will attract the sun or heat. So Phil is still trying to do the fire. He gives the bow drill a break. He decides to go back to hand drill. And at this point, it's been 22 hours since he started trying this fire. And at this point, it's been 22 hours since his first attempt at making fire. And he finally gets it. He gets an ember, gets it a little stronger, it becomes a coal, and I'm so excited. His will to not quit was large, was huge. You know, his attention to detail and staying on the task, I give him a lot of respect. And he says he's never been so grateful to have a fire in his life. I could only imagine. You know, that's pretty significant. That's a big accomplishment in a survival situation. Now you can warn predators. Now you can purify water. Now you can cook meat. Now you can smoke meat. You can preserve meat. You can stay warm. You have entertainment. It helps raise your morale. It's a huge accomplishment. And a personal thought here is I'm thinking that all of his previous attempts at the hand drill, which failed, right? I think that was good stuff, though, because I believe that all of that attempt and all that heat and that friction that he did create may have dried out his spindle and or his hearth, which ultimately ended up with positive results, as we could see. So very good. You know, he didn't quit. Phil and Shane decide that they want to honor the animal by eating the heart to receive the animal's soul. A lot of people believe that. And there's an annotation that comes on the screen that says some Native Americans would also drink the blood of their first kill to honor the animal. And it says something kind of funny. Others would show respect by leaving an offering of meat or tobacco. That would be me. I'd be like, let me respect it by leaving some tobacco. That'd be me. I'm not into drinking blood. If I had to in a survival, I probably would, but that wouldn't be my favorite thing at all. So Anne says that it tastes like it smells. It's kind of funny. I've never had it. I can only imagine what they're going through. I've had mutton, you know, out here on the reservation in Arizona, they have mutton, which is sheep. I've had that, and it tastes like it smells too. So Shane is joking around saying that this is wonderful. You know, he's talking about how good the meat tastes. I thought that was funny. So they have a quarter of the Musk Ox, and they're making jerky on a tripod at this point. Now let's move forward to day 3. Raining outside. They don't have any shelter still. Shane says that they've been, and this is something that I noticed, and I want you guys to pay attention to this. Shane says that they've been neglecting shelter because the animal takes priority over everything else. I don't know about that. I'm going to let you guys chew on that and come up with your own thoughts on that one. So let's move forward to day 4. And at the end of day 3, they decided to start on shelter. So now we're on day 4. It's 40 degrees outside. It's raining, and they're still working on the shelter. They decided to make a shelter that will fit 2 people, a smaller shelter because it'll be easier to heat. It's a smaller area, so it's not as big to heat. And they believe that 1 person will be on a fire watch. That was Shane's idea. He's like, we're going to make a shelter for 2. 2 people are going to be in the shelter. 1 person's going to be on fire watch. I don't know if that's smart or not. You know, I don't know. I don't really have a comment on that. It's raining outside, so Phil takes meat off the tripod and puts it in the shelter. So it's very smart. He doesn't want the meat to get wet and go bad. And it's the middle of the night now on day number 4. It's 33 degrees outside, so just barely above freezing. So we're moving forward. It's day 7, and they're going to go get the stomach for the musk ox to make something out of it. Shane wants to cut the stomach in half to make 2 containers, which I agree with. I think that's very smart. Phil wants to eat the chime inside the stomach for carbs. I'm going to hold my thoughts on that one. And there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says chime is a semi-fluid mass of partially digested food that is created in the stomach. Primitive people living in harsh environments would eat chime to gain access to plants and nutrients they couldn't find easily. Now, you really want to know my thoughts on that. I'm going to keep it delicate here, but they're on day 7. They have a musk ox kill. They're not on day 77. In my opinion, it's not that dire yet to do something that extreme. I get where he's coming from, but personally, that's not something I would have done. Phil puts some chime on a flat stone in the fire to heat it up in an effort to kill bacteria. He offers some to Shane. Shane says, no thanks, bro, I'm good. That's what I would have said too. Anne goes ahead and tries it. She says it tastes like a cigarette, but it's good to have that kind of knowledge, but it's not that dire yet. So let's move forward. We're on day 8, talking about Anne. She decides she wants to make soap. She's worried that if you're not clean, that can cause microbial upsets in your body. And Shane has said before that she's a germaphobe, right? When you're in a survival situation and you're going to use fat or tallow to render something, you need to put that in your body. not waste it on making soap. That's my opinion. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says the ancient Babylonians were the first to make soap, and this was about 5,000 years ago, and they made their soap from animal fat, water, and ash. So the ash from the fire has lime in it when you add water to it, and then they would use the tallow or the fat from the animal to make the bars, and the lye from the ash and water goes into that, and that's how it makes a bar of soap. I think that the knowledge of being able to make a bar of soap is fabulous, but if you're gonna have fat there, you need to consume that when you're trying to survive, not worry about cleaning your hands. Dirt can clean your hands. I would have ate the fat. So we're moving forward to day 9. Phil decided to make a secondary smoker so they can smoke more meat. He did that the day before on day 8. He used a lot of spruce boughs. And Shane was fleshing the hide of the musk ox with a stone in an effort to make a blanket for everybody. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says Native Americans would brain tan the hides. Animal brains contain oils that keep the hide soft and pliable. I keep hearing gunfire off here to the southeast of me. Shane needs another rock to finish fleshing the hide, so Phil offers to go to the lake to get him one. He asks Shane, please keep an eye on that smoker. I'll go get you another stone. I saw one down there that looked good. So Shane says, okay, no problem. And he's explaining to the camera person about the rock and stuff like that. He's talking about the rock and how they're going to cut and flesh and all that. And during this moment, Anna jumps up and says, oh no. She notices that the smoker is just starting to catch fire. So they both get up and they run over there. And Shane tells Ann, back up, which I would have done that too. By this time, the fire's starting to get kind of large, and he's looking out for her safety. He doesn't want her to get hurt from this fire. So basically what happens is they both watch the meat go up in flames, and that could be very, very frustrating. And Phil gets back and he's like, what happened? You know, he's kind of like frustrated. So let's move forward. It's day 13. Phil is having some weird stomach pains. He wants some different food. He wants something different. Anne has a musk ox horn, and she offers to grind it up into a powder to put on the meat. She says that it'll give them some sodium and minerals. Shane's like, awesome. And I'm sitting here thinking about that, and I'm like, I don't think that's something I would have done. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says musk ox horns are made of a bony core and a keratin sheath. Bone meal contains calcium, phosphorus, and enzymes. So we're moving forward. It's day 14. Phil is having a hard time. He's having a hard time keeping his mind off of his stomach hurting. He's feeling weak. He's getting nauseous. And every time he stands up, he feels like he's going to pass out. And he goes off and throws up. So I'm really feeling for Phil. He's having a hard time. Day 15. Phil's concerned about his health. He's still hurting. He gets up and he tells Shane and Ann, he says, I'm wanting to go home. And Shane tells him, I don't want you to leave, man. And Ann gets emotional. She doesn't want him to leave either. And Phil fires the flare. He taps out. And he's done. Shane and Ann are both concerned. And Ann says, are you going to be okay, Shane? And it's raining outside. Phil mentioned his skills at home are good, but this new location teaches him some humility. I kind of touched on that earlier. So we're moving forward. It's day 16. Shane sees some bull moose scat, and he thinks that it could be dangerous. The bull moose could be dangerous. There's an annotation on the screen that says, during the rut, season, bull moose become more aggressive and more likely to attack. So now it's the night of day 16. Shane's asleep, and Ann hears a noise. She says it's a moose, and she wakes Shane up, and she said, the moose is close. And to me, and I'm not out there, but the audio that came across the screen, to me, it sounded like a bear. But again, I'm not out there, but Ann thinks that it's a moose. They didn't get a visual of whatever that was. So she thinks it's a moose. I thought that it sounded like a bear. I don't know. Moving forward to day 20, Ann is scared. She's losing a lot of weight. And then the annotation comes on the screen, and it says that Shane and Ann have lost a combined 35 pounds. Now, I know that you can't do it this way, but if you divide that by 2, that's 17.5 pounds. Shane's a bigger dude than Ann, so he's probably lost more of that weight, but I'm just putting it out there in a perspective for you guys to think about. 17.5 pounds apiece, roughly, give or take. Shane decides to make pemmican. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, pemmican was prized by Native Americans and Arctic explorers for its durability. Properly preserved pemmican can last for years. And Shane says pemmican is crushed jerky or dried meat that's crushed up, dried blueberries, and lard. And I'm thinking, okay, he means well. It's not lard. Lard comes from pigs. It's from tallow. Tallow is the fat that comes from suet, which is around the kidney area of an animal. Suet is the hardest fat, and that's where you get tallow, and tallow is what you put in pemmican. Now, I'm not trying to correct Shane because I know that he understands what he's doing. It might just be a brain fart, him using the wrong term. I do that all the time when I shoot YouTube videos. I get people that come in the comment section and they're like, well, it's this. And I get it. Shane might have just accidentally used the wrong term. I'm pretty sure he knows what pemmican is because they're going to make some. One thing that I noticed is there was some big old plump blueberries and cranberries there, and I'm thinking, where did they get those? Where did they get blueberries and cranberries? They didn't show anything about going out and, oh, look, we found some blueberries. Oh, there's cranberries here too. And they were big old plump, ripe blueberries and cranberries. And I'm thinking, nah, man. Red flag, man. That's not. Why don't you just eat the cranberries and the blueberries? You know, I don't know. Pemmican was a good idea, though, so I got to give Shane credit. So Shane says it's the original energy bar. And this next thing that Shane does was super smart. He takes the ball joint and the hip socket, and he uses that for a mortar and pestle to break up the dried meat, to crush it up. I thought that was extremely smart. Very, very good idea of doing that technique to do that. I thought that was cool. So moving forward, we're on day 22. Shane's feeling run down. He says it's squirrel hunting time. So they decide to go, and Ann's telling him how to throw the thing at the squirrel. I'm like, dang. So day 24, they didn't get a squirrel. They're out of meat. They decide that they're going to build a fish weir trap. Good idea. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says fish weirs are one of the oldest known traps, and they were used by hunter-gatherers in North America 8,000 years ago. It's 41 degrees outside, and there's another annotation because they're walking in the water, getting all wet, putting these sticks in the water to make this fish weir. And the annotation says that cold water can hasten the onset of hypothermia because it draws heat away from the body. And I noticed that Shane said that he put some rotten meat in there for bait. And that triggered a thought in my mind, like I wouldn't have done that. I would have tried to get some good bait that the fish want. Moving forward, it's day 25. They go to check the weir. There's nothing there. And at this point, Shane has lost 38 pounds. 38 pounds. That's 1.5 pounds per day. He's lost a lot of weight. There's nothing in the fish weirs. He decides that he's going to go back to camp. They're both wet. They're both cold. He takes his boot off and he's literally pouring water out of his boot. And like I said, it's 41 degrees outside the day before. So the temperatures are cold. It's pretty tough environment that they're in. Let's move forward to day 28. They decide to go down and check the weir again. There's nothing in the weir. And I'm thinking that the fish didn't want that rotten meat. That's what I wrote down on my notes. Shane says, right now my energy levels are so low, I'm done. And when he said that, I thought he was going to tap. Anne says that she thinks the next few days are going to be cold and hungry. And I agree with her. That's a very good assessment that she made. Now, the next thing we see, it's extraction day. It's day 30. And she said the last days were very hard and cold. She said, I'm not sure if I could have went much longer. You know, I got to give her credit for being honest with that. And then Shane says, this challenge has made me realize how hard it was for our ancestors to live. They knew what they were doing. They knew their fire, their shelter, their foraging. And he says, nowadays we call those survival skills today, but back then those were living skills. And Anne shoots the flare. So Anne and Shane had to survive together, and they have respect for each other, and they care for each other, even though they butted heads a little bit in this episode. And Anne says, thinking about what ancestors went through in this land, that she thinks that their group or their tribe or their community was very important, and she thinks that they valued each other more than anything. And that's the end of the episode. A couple more thoughts before I go is I noticed on these 3 episodes, you know, season 1 of Alone the Beast, I haven't seen anybody try to set any primitive deadfalls, any bird traps or anything like that. And I was kind of wondering about that. I also haven't seen anybody do any kind of water seep wells or anything. And in this episode specifically, it didn't really show what they did for cordage. It didn't really show what they did for containers to hold water or to drink water, or how they purified their water. And I want to say thank you guys for joining me today on this episode. I ask that you keep the comments clean and polite and respectful. And this episode was in memory of Tracy Wilson, who was on season 2 of Alone. She passed away in 2019. So I want to say thank you guys for chiming in on this video. Hope you guys give it some traction. Please feel free to leave your positive comments down below. Like this video, share this video, and as always, thanks for stopping by. Hope you guys have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.